Okay, so now we're going to add various different materials to our oil spill and observe how well those materials either absorb the oil or the water or both. So some of the sorbent materials we have are string, and this is meant to simulate, say, a boom that we would deploy in an ocean environment primarily, or you can also deploy it in a freshwater environment, where the boom is meant to encapsulate and act as a barrier around that oil so it doesn't spread. And then also some of the oil will adhere to the edge of the boom, or our piece of string in this instance. Then we have some kitchen sponges. These are not natural material. These are man-made synthetic sponges. I have some cut up paper napkins, some cotton balls, that's pretty obvious, some shredded wood particles, okay? And then I also have human hair, and we'll come back to the human hair in a little bit. Now also here I have our feathers, down feathers. So these are goose feathers. And we're going to add this to the oil spill as well, not as a sorbent material, but to get a sense of what the impacts to our wildlife might be when they're in a situation where they're caught up in this oil spill. So with that, let me get started, and we'll add our fresh water to both bowls. And then I'm going to add a little regular table salt. And we're going to compare how these sorbent materials behave in a saltwater environment and in a freshwater environment. Do they work as well in both environments, or are they behaving differently? I'm going to use this pair of tweezers to stir it up a little bit. Okay, then I have my 2 cups. Oh, I have a feather in there. I'm going to pour some vegetable oil in both. I don't need a whole lot. And then some cocoa powder. This is quite the messy lab, but it's fun. I don't usually get to do this part, so I get to have fun today. I'm sorry if you're watching this video that you're not here and able to do the lab yourself. Okay. Do you want to zoom in and get a good look at what this simulated oil spill looks like? So it's nice and dark brown, so we'll be able to see it very easily when we pour it into the water. Okay, so they're well mixed. And then I'm going to pour it into our salt water, our ocean environment. I had enough in this, I'm going to add it here. Add a little bit more. Okay. All right, so now we can see that our oil is floating on top of the water surface. And I've put enough in that we've covered almost the entire surface of our bowl. I'm going to add a little bit more here, maybe. Okay. And now we'll start adding some of our sorbent materials. You see that all right? Okay, so here is our string. Okay, we're going to add it to the salt water. And at the same time, I'm going to add it to the fresh water. There we go. And you can see that it's absorbing. It looks like it's absorbing some of the oil mixture. Give it another minute. It's not sinking, it's still floating on top. And as I pull it out, you can see it's somewhat coated with the oil. But this one in the salt water, it's not, you know, completely coated with dark brown stained oil. So, you know, make your observations and describe how well you think it absorbed the oil versus the water. Okay, that's in our salt solution. And then in our freshwater solution, well, it looks a little bit different. Okay, so again, make your observations and write it down in your handout, or type it in your handout, I should say. Everybody should be typing their labs up to submit online. Okay, so a little bit different in its appearance in the freshwater. Okay? So now we'll move on to our sponge. I'm going to drop one in here in the salt water and one in the fresh water. And we'll give it a few minutes. Can we zoom in? In the fresh or in the salt water, you can see now there's a blue patch where I had dropped the sponge. Okay, that wasn't there a few minutes ago. In the fresh water, the sponge is taking a little bit longer to soak. Oh, but there it goes. So we'll give it a minute. Oh, and look, we see some clear water. Okay, so that's a good thing. Now the question will be, when I pick up these pieces of sponge, how much oil comes with them versus how much water? Because the name of the game is to absorb more oil than water. Because of course, all of these sorbent materials in a real life situation, they now become toxic waste and they have to be disposed of in some manner. So where is this material going to go? It's going to end up in a landfill or perhaps an incinerator. So you want to bring with it the least amount of water. We want to leave the clean water behind and absorb more oil. So let's see how well we did with our sponge. Oh, these are hard to pick up. Okay, here we go. Whoa, sorry about that. Really have to grab tight. Okay, well, we have some oil, okay? But even after letting it sit there for a few minutes, you can see that part of the sponge is not really coated. But we did have some of the oil coated. And we do have, boy, these are hard to hold on to. Now I know why we make a mess in lab. But we do have more clear open water. Fresh water. Okay, you need to make the observations. Do you see as much oil on the sponge as you did in the salt water? And is the water as clear? Is there more blue water where there was oil compared to the salt water? Okay. All right. Let's move on to our napkins, our paper napkins. Very thin sheets. I'm going to put a couple in. They're going to absorb very quickly. Okay, so let's see. Can we zoom in real closely when I pick up the paper towel, and let's see how well we get clear water opening up. No. Clearly some of the water did adhere to the napkin, but perhaps there's a lot of water in the napkin as well. It's really not a very dark brown color. So that was our salt water solution again. And our fresh water, let's see what happens here. Okay, did it appear to absorb more oil, same or less than the salt water? You decide. Okay, now we're going to move on to the cotton ball. I'm going to help it along a little. Okay, now before I pick the cotton ball up, what do you observe? Take a close look at the cotton ball in our oil spill. What do you notice? Write those observations down. Okay, now I'm going to pick up the cotton ball, again in our saltwater marine environment. And what do you see? On the one side of the cotton ball that was below the surface of the water, there's oil. But what do you notice on the rest of the cotton ball? Okay. Let's see what happens in our freshwater environment. I'm going to drop it, sorry. Again, is there more oil on that cotton ball as compared to the saltwater environment? Same or less? And then what else do you notice? Okay? Again, write those observations down. Okay, now we're going to move on to the wood chips. I'm going to put them in a pile. They're going to be hard to pick up. Okay, they look pretty saturated. Let's see. With our saltwater environment, they are hard to pick up. Okay, again, how saturated are they with the oil? Do we have clear water underneath where they were? Pick them up from right here. Okay. And then as we move on to our freshwater environment, how much oil are they absorbing? Is there clear water behind? Okay. So then our last sorbent material is human hair. Students often ask, where do I get this hair from? And
Feathers.
what?
Feathers.
We're going to do the feathers last.
Okay.
So do you want to stop and